Hello, everyone. We want to welcome you to the employment workshops that we're doing today. So I think we'll go ahead and we'll just get things started and give you an introduction to everything related to employment, especially employment off campus that's not authorized directly as part of your student experience at Utah State University. Okay. With that being said, I'm going to introduce myself and let my team members introduce themselves as well. I'm Shelley Ortiz. I'm the director of our International Student and Scholar Services team. I have been at Utah State University in the Office of Global Engagement for 14 years and different rotations, loved all different aspects of international education. Amanda, I'm going to turn it over and let you introduce yourself.
Amanda Castillo, and I've worked in the office for about 8 years in a lot of different capacities. And right now, with my alphabet split, I work obviously with the A to B, the M to Y, and sponsored students. And just here to support my colleagues as well as all of you. So I'm so glad you could join us today.
Hey, Chris, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I actually don't have a camera because I'm in my office and I don't have a webcam on my desktop in the office. But you can see a picture of me there. My name is Chris Cameron. I've been with the office for about 2 years and I've been a DSO/ARO for about a year. I primarily work with all of our new F1 graduate students as well as the visiting scholars. And I see a few names in here of people that I've been working with. But I'd also like to extend a welcome to everyone that's here. Thank you for your time today.
Agreed. Thank you, Chris. We also have Sarah Rasmussen on our team. Sarah is our peer advisor, and she manages our international students at usu.edu mailbox. And so she's great to answer some general questions about how the ISSS portal works, refer you to some resources, give you some basic information, especially if you've set up an appointment with us. She's going to reach out to you, give you some links to help you prepare for the appointment so that you can really get maximum information that you need and make sure you're asking the right questions when you do meet with your advisors. Today, we're going to talk about how you can maintain your immigration status, but also take advantage of some of those employment benefits that are available to you. And we're going to talk about the application timelines and requirements for you to obtain authorization to accept such employment. This is actually the landing page for the ISSS portal. It's isss.usu.edu. I've highlighted some of those resources that are really great. So a lot of information we tried to break down into some frequently asked questions. So if you have a question, I would suggest you check there. The International Student Webinar Series, we have different webinars. That is where we're actually going to put the recording of this presentation. And then the ISSS tutorials, there's different topics that you can review, and we have short videos that introduce the topic. And it's a mini advising session. So what things that we answer quite frequently in the advising sessions or appointments are things that we want you to know about as you're working, whether applying for academic training or optional practical training, and other such issues. So all of that's in there for you to access. Now, when you're at Utah State University and you're in the USA, you do not want your passport to expire or your Form I-20. Your Form I-20 gives you authorization to be present in the United States. The visa can expire because the visa is just essentially the ticket to get in the door. You're telling the Border Patrol office that you've been vetted and viewed, you can come in, and then it's based on you. If you look in your Form I-94, you'll see you've been admitted until D/S, which means duration of status. That means as long as your I-20 and your program at Utah State University is active, then you're allowed to be here present in the United States. Now, one thing to note is that in the employment that we're going to talk about, you're still being sponsored by Utah State University. That means that you have to report any changes to us within 10 days. And then we are required to report those to the federal government using that Student Exchange Visitor Information System, or the SEVIS system.
As Shelley said, as we've mentioned, this is an employment webinar, or an employment workshop. So let's talk a little bit about employment, shall we? So there are two broad categories of employment. There's on-campus employment and off-campus employment. And as F1 students, everyone is eligible for on-campus employment. The main caveat for that is if you apply for a job on campus and you get hired, you do need to request an employment authorization from our office for each new position. The most common form of on-campus employment we see is generally with graduate research or teaching assistantships, but any other job that's on campus will qualify as well, such as working in the library or the cafe, anything that you can find on campus, you are eligible for as an F1 student. So during spring and fall semesters, you are eligible to work up to 20 hours per week. And during breaks, so summer, spring break, fall break, and winter break, you can work up to 40 hours per week. So I mentioned a little bit earlier, that's one of the things you'll need is an employment authorization verification. So that is one of the documents that you will need to take down to your Social Security appointment. So Social Security is basically, it's a number that facilitates payment as well as certain other things related to employment, and everyone needs to have one if you're going to be working. So how do you get one, one might ask? Well, as I mentioned, you will need this employment authorization verification document from our office. And to do that, we need your employment offer letter from your employer. And so the information that that letter needs to have is it needs to have your job title, your start date, the number of hours you're expected to work each week, which again is no more than 20. And it needs to be signed by your supervisor with their contact information. It looks similar to like an email signature. And also, if possible, it should be printed on department letterheads. Now, there are also other documents that you will need for your Social Security appointments. And give me 1 second, I will share how to find those. If we go here, so again, you'll see our landing page here for the ISSS portal. If you just go to general information here and go to Social Security number application process, you'll be able to pull up this document, which gives you basically everything you need to know about applying for Social Security. So again, the documents you'll need your employment authorization verification letter, which is what I just went over. You'll need your employer letter from your supervisor. You'll need the Social Security application, which you can pick up either from our office or down at Social Security when you go down there. You'll need your original I-20 or DS-2019. So many of you, because of COVID, have your electronic copies. Those ones actually won't suffice for Social Security. You will need to come to our office and get your original if you don't have it. You'll also need your passport and your visa, and you'll also need your I-94. Now, many of you will already have this because of your immigration check-in. So you just go back to that website, or if you still have it on your computer, you can just reprint off that and that will work. So let's go ahead and close that. So let's go back to the PowerPoint, okay. And so also down here, there are certain COVID-19 changes that the Social Security office is making. Currently, the Social Security office is only operating on appointments only. So you will need to call them and schedule an appointment yourself. We can't do it for you, unfortunately. And there is a wait time. I think currently the wait time is between 3 and 4 weeks to be able to get an appointment. So the earlier you call, the better. Okay, so next let's talk a little bit about off-campus employment. There are two types of off-campus employment, and they are curricular practical training, or what we commonly refer to as CPT, and there's optional practical training, which we commonly refer to as OPT. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about CPT. So CPT is, the best way to describe it is it's basically a work experience or an internship that's tied to your academic degree or your plan. So in order to be eligible for CPT, it needs to be required, right? It needs to be a core requirement for your degree in order for you to actually be able to participate in CPT. And you must be able to show that by registering for an internship credit for the semester that you are applying for CPT. It is not authorized by USCIS, which is something that, as opposed to OPT, it's authorized by our office, and it does go on your I-20. And it will require you to fill out, you and your department to fill out an approved training plan. And I don't have a picture of it to show you, but if you apply for CPT, you'll immediately know what it is because it's right there and you can't miss it. So CPT can be done on or off campus. And if you're applying for part-time CPT, which is the most common type, you are, again, only allowed to work 20 hours per week and 40 hours a week during vacation semesters. For full-time CPT, it works a little bit differently, but in the application process, that will become readily apparent, and you will basically be authorized to work 40 hours a week, even during academic semesters, as long as it is required by your department. So how do you know if you're eligible for CPT? So as an F1 student, you must have been registered full-time for at least 2 semesters or 1 academic year and be in status before you're eligible to apply for CPT. Grad students, this is actually a little bit different, as you may participate in CPT in your first semester if your department requires it as part of your academic program. As I mentioned earlier, the authorization goes on the I-20. What is important to know is that you must have your I-20 with that authorization on it before you can begin working on your CPT. That is absolutely important. You may not begin work until you have your I-20 in your hands with your CPT authorization. So one more important consideration to keep in mind, if you do apply for full-time CPT, you are only allowed to work for 365 days before you start to lose your benefits for OPT. So again, if you work for 1 full calendar year on full-time CPT, you will lose your OPT benefits. So that includes pre-completion OPT, post-completion OPT, and the STEM extension. So we generally recommend that if you're applying for full-time CPT, you work no more than 11.5 months, just to keep that safe. And this is cumulative. So if for some reason you apply for full-time CPT and work for 1 semester and then don't do CPT for a semester and then do another one, that will still count against you. So please do keep that in mind if you are going to participate in full-time CPT. And with that, I'm actually going to go ahead and hand it off to Amanda, and she's going to talk to you a little bit about OPT.
Obviously, Shelley mentioned, well, you're on any of these benefits, you're still sponsored by Utah State University. And so these benefits are tied to having done a degree or completed a degree. So optional practical training, there can be pre and post degree optional practical training. Pre-optical training, practical training is not very common because it is a bit of the same process. You still have to go through the same paper application. It still has to be authorized by USCIS. And so the most common form of OPT that people participate in is optional practical training post-degree. So this employment benefit is for F1 students. Just like CPT, it's going to be related to your field of study. And when we talk about your field of study, that's going to be you referring to your I-20 and your primary major on your I-20. And so, students will often ask, how do I know if it's related to my field of study? There's some great resources on Study in the States when you're looking at how do you look at field of study. But this benefit, when you apply for it, everyone is eligible for a 12-month work benefit. So that's whether you're a STEM major or not. So the first time that you apply, you will be applying for that 12-month work benefit. And that 12-month work benefit is available to you regardless of how many degrees. If you did an associate's, you're able to do that, bachelor's, master's. So we do have students who will participate in 1 degree level, participate in OPT, then matriculate to a master's, do OPT. And so you can see that this can eat up a big chunk of time and your time here in the US, but it is a great opportunity. And so we always recommend that you keep that option in mind, as well as, obviously the benefits that it may have. So things to think about with OPT. So, the standard work week is a 40-hour work week. That doesn't mean that if you have a job that is an exempt position that you can't work more than 40 hours, but we're basically authorizing, a 40-hour work week. So, you can have multiple employers. Often we'll have students who will do 20 hours with one employer and 20 hours with another. It is nice if you're working, more than 20 hours. But we'll talk a little bit about, full-time and part-time here in a minute. So one thing to think about is you can actually participate in OPT on campus. It's different than being employed by a department because you are basically authorized because you have an employment authorization document that allows you to work after you've completed your degree. And so, definitely be thinking about your departments and other resources and networking when you're looking at work options. Now, we might sponsor you when you apply for OPT because that benefits because you attended Utah State University or completed a degree. But USCIS, US Citizenship and Immigration Services, is actually the one that processes that application request. And when you do that application, you're going to be gathering a lot of different materials. You'll be, uploading them to our portal so we can review to see if you're eligible for these benefits. And then you're going to be printing everything off because unfortunately, the forms that OPT requires is called Form I-765, can't be filed online like some of their other forms. And so you do have to print everything off, and you're going to send that with a check for $410, and that is non-refundable. So if for some reason you change your mind after you've mailed that, you're out of luck, it's done. And then as far as the cost, it is always possible that the cost can go up. They did have a fee proposal that went out on October 2nd that was held up in litigation. It still is $410, but that proposed increase was going to jump up to $540. And so with all of this, since it is processed by USCIS, you will see in our International Students and Scholars portal that we're often linking you directly to USCIS's website because we have no control over when they change something or if they update a mailing address or they change the fee. So you want to make sure that when you're utilizing a service that's a benefit of USCIS, that you are reading the instructions and paying close attention to your application with great care and detail. What we do here in the Office of Global Engagement is we do print a new I-20 for you. It shows that your OPT is requested. And when we print it off, it shows the status as requested. And then when USCIS approves your OPT, if we were to go in and print your I-20 again, it would print with approved on it. And then also on that I-20, it's going to have the start date that you've selected. And that start date is in your grace period. And by grace period, your grace period is 60 days after your program end date occurs. So for this semester, the semester ends on May 5th. You would have the 60-day grace period to do, a couple things. One, to go home if you so choose, to apply for OPT and select a start date in that 60-day grace period, or matriculate to another degree program. So depending on kind of what your end goal is, not everybody does apply for OPT, but applying for OPT gives you some options. Obviously, it keeps you in status while that application is pending, but you still have to select a start date within that 60-day grace period. So when we talk about when to apply, each of you are going to be in different situations, are going to have different defense dates, all sorts of things. For undergraduate students, you can start applying 90 days before the program end date, so 90 days before May 5th for this semester. And then when you're selecting that start date, again, that start date is going to happen in the 60 days after May 5th. What happens after the 60-day period, right? So if you selected an example of May 5th, if you selected June 5th as your start date, on June 6th, that would start your 90 days of unemployment. So wherever that start date that you select in the grace period is going to be the kickoff for your 90 days of unemployment. So when students ask, what should I do for my start date? A lot of what I refer to is what are USCIS's processing times and do you have a job? Because those two things are going to be things that all of you will have to navigate. And so if you don't have a job, often students will pick a date later in that grace period because it gives them more time to look for a job. But be mindful that as of your program end date, and while you're waiting for your EAD card to arrive, you are not allowed to work. So you want to be careful that you've thought about this, because say your card isn't arriving till the end of your 60-day grace period, or what if USCIS is processing it late and they take beyond 120 days to process your EAD card? How does that impact you? Because again, until that EAD shows up, which is the employment authorization document, and we've arrived to the date that you've selected to your start date, both of those have to happen before you can start work. So for our graduate students, we kind of talk about best practices, because we used to not allow students to apply for OPT until they had successfully defended. And we still are going to recommend that because we want to make sure that you have done everything possible to get your degree and complete your degree successfully before you apply for OPT. Because once you apply for OPT, we really can't stop that process. And then you might be juggling trying to work and finish your degree at the same time. And though that might be a little easier because a lot of people are working remotely right now, during normal situations, you've got someone who maybe wants you in the office reporting to work, and then maybe you might have research and other components that might keep you here. So it does make it very challenging. So when you are a graduate student, if you're defending later in the semester, often what students do is they will register for the grace semester, which is something that all graduate students are eligible for if they have successfully defended and meet those requirements. And that grace semester, what's keeping you in status is the fact that you have registered. So we are still reporting registration, but it means that rather than applying prior to the grace semester, you're applying in your grace semester. And that does add some flexibility, especially if you're defending late. And so what's really helpful is for you to take kind of your timeline and map it out. And if you have a job offer, when are they expecting you to apply or start work? And then all of the uncertainty that comes along with USCIS. Processing times are really crazy right now. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in a future slide. So how to apply? We do expect you to go into the ISSS portal and review the content that is in there, and you're going to upload all your documents. So, you know, all of the documents that Chris mentioned for CPT, so your I-94, your I-20s, but then you're also uploading, you know, copies of your passport and your visa, because a lot of this stuff, if it's not valid, right, you have to be eligible. So that means you have to have a current passport. You have to have been maintaining registration status. So there's a lot of things that we look at when you're uploading those documents, but making sure that you're reading the instructions and following those instructions is important because this is your application. This is not our application. And though we may be looking at your request, we may not be, we're looking for the obvious things that we see in errors, but it is your responsibility to make sure that it's filled out properly and that you're submitting it to us within a timely manner. Most of our requests take 3 to 5 business days to process. And that, you know, variation is depending on, you know, how busy, what are we working on? Right now we're in the registration period. And then starting February 5th, you know, we'll have people, you know, submitting OPT. And so there's these very specific cycles that we have each semester. And so because of those peaks, you want to make sure that you're submitting it in a timely manner so you can get the documents that you need by the time that you need them. Now, you can't apply before 90 days. We have to be within that 90 days of your end date. If you apply 90, you know, at 93 days, they're going to return it. If you apply and we've gone past the 60-day grace period, you're no longer eligible as well. We never tell students to wait to apply, especially given all of the unknown timeline that USCIS has. And so always applying when you know that you have intentions to work, you know that you're on track to graduate. And I always do recommend that you schedule. So if we allow you to apply and you haven't scheduled your defense and you haven't worked with the School of Graduate Studies and your GPC to make sure that you are eligible to complete, then we have students who will find themselves in trouble because they have done none of the work to make sure that they're on track to finish. They apply for OPT, and then we find out there's no way they're going to finish. Again, we can't, you know, void that application easily, and sometimes it could be the possible loss of your OPT if for some reason, you know, it gets a little messy. So
Amanda, we actually had a question that kind of dovetails into what you're saying.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
From Camilo, the one about pre-completion and degree and research and so do you want to talk a little bit about coursework being finished and applying for OPT?
Yeah, so when you're, again, you know, we used to not have anyone be able to apply until they had successfully defended. So what we're basically looking at is you know, we're not going to prevent you from applying for OPT in the semester, say that you're defending early. You would still have to be 90 days from that program completion, but we're not going to make you have had to have your defense date already occur. And so what the regulations state, and so this is kind of where we've kind of looked at this, is the regulations state that once you've completed all the required course requirements, that you're eligible to apply for OPT. Obviously, there's some challenges in there, because if you're not going to finish your degree requirements in a timely manner, you might also impact your ability to apply for the STEM extension, because one of the requirements for the STEM extension is that you've completed your degree prior to the period of being able to apply. And so what we're trying to do is encourage you all to be smart about this process, because if there's nothing forcing you to apply early, right? You applying earlier does, like in the, you know, in the semester, doesn't necessarily, you're not going to get your USCIS card any faster, and you might jeopardize your ability to complete your degree. And so it is going to be your own responsibility, because we're going to look at eligibility, and the regulations say this is when you're eligible. But if you don't have anything driving that, what we generally recommend is that you defend. And then after you defend, get your paperwork in, figure out if you're registering for the grace semester, right? And if it's late, registering for the grace semester, because again, that's going to keep your immigration status in play. And it means that we're able to keep you legally registered while this OPT application is pending. So the thing to keep in mind with USCIS and that timeline is that USCIS, you know, it used to be that it was like 80 to 90 days, you know, and then we saw it jump up to 110. USCIS can legally take 120 days, no questions asked. And it's not even considered late until 121 days. If you were to go to USCIS's website today and you were to look at, you know, the different service centers, so the service center that students were sending their applications to, it actually says that their processing times right now are 3 to 6.5 months. And so again, that's why you want to apply in a timely manner. That's why, you know, if you are on track to finish and say you have a job, that's a great time to apply. But also that timeline can be, you know, really frustrating. And I think that's a very real thing that we're experiencing on our side, is that USCIS has made a lot of changes and they have a lot of delays. And so students are panicked because even just getting a receipt is, they have a notice out that that's taking 6 to 8 weeks or more. And so, right, all of this, the timeline, you know, again, thinking about when are you going to defend, when are you planning to complete, and then utilizing that grace semester if it makes sense. Again, the grace semester is optional, it's not required, but it is a way for you to finish your corrections and apply for OPT at the same time. Does that kind of answer your question, Shelley?
Yes, I just think the point of clarification in this one is with pre-completion and post-completion, actually, we don't necessarily recommend pre-completion if you completed all of your post-work or your coursework, just because then you're applying and applying again. And so in the scenario that Amanda's talked about, it's post-completion. I can honestly say I've never seen an experience where we've applied for pre-completion. So most people.
I've done one pre-completion, but they ended up abandoning it because, again, this timeline to be able to actually have it authorized makes it really challenging. And so to be able to actually get your EAD card in time to do pre-completion work, pay all the fees, and then turn it around and do it again the next semester is just not really reasonable, especially given their USCIS uncertainties. So it is very uncommon. And so with this, right, so when you're gathering all of this documentation and you're trying to figure out, okay, do I have everything? You do have to submit all of the required documents, upload everything, complete all the forms. And so you're going to be filling out these forms and you may have questions. Go to the instructions and see if, because it generally is going to answer all of your questions, and fill it out. Because you have to submit everything for it to actually show up on our end. And if it's completed, at least we can have a dialogue about the things that you had questions on. And after you submit it, you know, again, that 3 to 5 business days, it's really challenging for us if you submit it, your advisor hasn't reviewed it, and then, you know, it hasn't been 3 to 5 days and we haven't even had a chance to look at it. So we never recommend submitting it and making an appointment the next day, but you can submit it and then compile your questions and send an email. And then if we still have additional follow-up, definitely make an appointment, but planning ahead. On the portal, there are, again, like Shelley said, there's lots of resources, there's videos, and Study in the States and USCIS are great resources. They talk about everything. So Study in the States, and, you know, Shelley pulled this up yesterday, but the, you know, if you have questions about, is my major STEM, you know, what do I need to do to, you know, complete this process? Great resources. Now, after you've compiled everything, we've printed that new I-20 that has your OPT request on the back. You're going to want to mail this application. Again, in here it says 2 weeks, but right now, as I mentioned earlier, it's, you know, taking 6 to 8 weeks and substantially longer for I-765, which is the form you're filling out for this. So the upsides in all of this is the timing for things to get turned around. It will hopefully go down. They've opened up a new processing center. And so hopefully they're moving these applications around, and hopefully we'll start to see them processed quicker and receipts getting out earlier. And so unfortunately, things are taking 6 to 8 weeks. So again, getting it in time so you're not panicking, wonder if they received it. Now that EAD card, it says, you know, it'll arrive 120 days or later. Again, once you hit 121 days is when USCIS is generally saying this is beyond our normal processing time. It'll be interesting to see how that happens now with it saying that they have these longer processing times. So when your actual EAD card is approved, typically what happens is they send you, because you fill out a form that gives them permission to email you and text you. And that's great because you get faster alerts. And so if there's an issue, you'll get a faster update that way as well. But what happens is they send out a notification that it's been approved. And that's the I-797 notice of action. And so you get a piece of mail first and you're like, yes, it's my card. And then your card comes later because it is actually processed by another section. So they're going to give you notification that it's come, and then your card will come later. And if you don't have Social Security already, you would request Social Security as part of your I-765 application. So the other thing, once it's approved, and I've heard these emails are delayed as well. So after you get your card, you should get an email about creating an account on the SEVP portal. So we get a ton of emails. Students go, oh my gosh, should I do this? Is this spam? So what happens is we're collecting documentation and managing your records through our system because you are sponsored by us. So you're required legally to report those address changes, your email changes, phone number changes, employment updates, because you're still sponsored by USU. The SEVP portal is great because you're able to get additional notifications, you're able to see what's in the system, you can actually make some edits, but if you make those edits there and you don't update them in Banner, then what's going to happen is when we push an update, it's going to write over everything that you did, and now your correct SEVP portal account is not accurate. So I always tell students that those updates should be made in your Banner account, and you should be updating us within 10 days of any changes. And then go to your SEVP portal to see what's there. You know, maybe there's a typo in the name of your business. But again, also, just like Chris said, you don't ever want to start work until you see that it's authorized on your CPT. You always want to have a copy of your I-20 for any authorization, because on the back, it's going to list all your prior CPT. It's going to show all of your employers, and you want to keep a really great documentation because, again, this is your immigration record. So some considerations, you know, this is temporary. OPT is not considered long-time employment, and so We had some students ask if they are hired, are they legal to work in the US? You will be authorized to work for OPT. A second question that's often asked is, will you require sponsorship? And the answer to that is yes, because really, if you're only eligible for standard OPT, which is the 12 months, you're not going to be able to work with them beyond 12 months. And then if you are STEM eligible, you're able to get that extension and work for them longer. And so it is kind of challenging because obviously you want to be able to share with them like, hey, I'm eligible to work because I'm a STEM major. I'm going to have up to 3 years that I can possibly work for your company. But it is still temporary, though you may find an employer who's willing to sponsor you or look at some kind of H-1B or other things. We don't advise on that. So those are things that you definitely want to talk to their HR, their human resources, or if you have questions about some of those change of status later on, working with an attorney. Working before you get your EAD card is a serious offense. So remember that EAD card is what makes you eligible to work. It's what your employer is required to obtain from you in order to see that you're eligible to work. So really, when you're looking at your timeline, don't hurt your immigration status by working prior to that. And then if you work that full 12 months on standard OPT, or you work your full STEM extension, you have that 60-day grace period. So just like after you completed your degree, there was that 60-day grace period. If you complete the full 12 months, you will have another 60-day grace period at the end. But if you quit your job at 10 months and you don't have a job at the end, you do not have that grace period. So if you end up leaving, we do want you to report to us to let us know that you're quitting your job and maybe you've decided to go home, so we can address your record appropriately. And sometimes what that might require is you writing to USCIS to cancel your OPT. And there's some instances where that becomes more important, especially if you're going to do another degree level or a matriculation. So that SCV portal, that email comes from USCIS. It is not junk. Definitely worth keeping on. If you can't get into the portal and you've got that notification, but it's timed out, as advisors, we are able to go in and send you a reset password. We can't, change your login or your password, but we can send you that activation email. And then again, all of that stuff, if it's new employers, any new requests, if you need a travel signature while you're on any of these benefits, all of that's going to be done through the International Students and Scholars portal. And so that's the ISSS.usu.edu that we've been talking about and doing some training on. And then, like I said, banner, very, very important because it could overwrite good information. So traveling, a lot of students will be like, okay, well, if I'm graduating on May 5th and my employment start date is July 1st, I'm going to go home. We generally don't recommend that you travel after you've applied for OPT because you don't really have a status. You have a pending status. And so your EAD card hasn't arrived. You don't have an employer listed on your I-20. The back of your I-20 still shows that your OPT is in requested status. And so traveling outside the US, because you have none of those things, you don't have documentation that there's a reason for them to have you return. We have had students who've left and had people pick up their EAD card and ship it to them in their home country and be able to get back, but it's not a risk that we would support, especially with COVID and all of the other circumstances going on. And so if you do travel, we request that you wait till you get that EAD card, work with your employer to take an appropriate time off, and again, a lot of students are really concerned about their visa at the end. Remember that your visa is only critical if you leave the US and need to re-enter. Your EAD card does not replace your visa. So if you leave the US while you're authorized on OPT, you would have to get a new visa. And so again, that letter from your employer and all of those documents are really important, and you will still need travel signatures. And so we always recommend that while you're on OPT, and especially STEM OPT, that you're getting your documents updated every 6 months, because especially on STEM OPT, you have required every 6 months reporting. All right. I think that's it. I know there's lots of things in the chat. And I don't know if we want to do that at the end. What's your preference, Shelley?
My preference is actually, we're going to go ahead, we're going to answer just a couple of the questions. We have the STEM OPT presentation. We're going to have career services do a presentation, and then we'll have a Q&A section that we are happy to address more questions. One of the questions, though, was about remote work, and is there a time limit on you can work remotely based on COVID-19 and OPT? So actually what I'm showing here is the guidance about you can work remotely, and they said, is there an end date? Well, what has been happening is this was issued originally back in March, and they've been updating this guidance, but there was some debate in summer if they were going to change it. They didn't. And so we keep getting continually updates that right now, this is what the guidance is. This is what it is. And so it seems to be on a semester by semester basis that they look at it and decide if anything's going to change. So we're just ruling with what we get updates on. And if we ever hear any guidance that there are ending remote work authorization, that's one of the first things we're going to be sending out and communicating to all of you. Another thing I wanted to touch base is our ISSS tutorials page. There is actually on here guidance on how to complete that form I-765 that you would use to apply for OPT. So Amanda's talking in broad strokes, but we do have some tutorials that actually help you go through item by item and how to complete and submit this. There's also one on the form I-983. I'm going to talk about this. This is a form that you actually submit as part of your STEM OPT application. So again, just some help. And just a reminder that our job in all this process is we review your application. We give you feedback on your application to help you improve it when you submit it to USCIS. And then we also give you that Form I-20 showing USCIS that we've reviewed your status and we agree that you are eligible for the benefit that you are applying for. So that's just kind of a brief overview on that process. One other thing, well, I've got it right here. I'm going to show one other thing. Amanda referred to study in the States. And so this page, I just Googled study in the States, STEM OPT. And you can see here the STEM OPT hub navigation on your right side. There's information for students, there's information for employers, it's about the form I-983. This is my go-to place when I'm talking STEM OPT extension. So I would recommend that that's one of the first places you land as well. So with that being said, let's talk a little bit more about STEM OPT. So we indicated that only certain codes or CIP codes are eligible for the OPT STEM extension. Now you can see here the form I-20 in the middle of the page, you have this program button and you see the major. And your major 1 and your major 2, whatever CIP code is listed on there is what makes you eligible or not for the STEM OPT. So I dropped in the chat that link to the STEM eligible degree list. It's if what you have is on your form I-20 under your major, it can't be a minor, it matches what's on that STEM OPT degree list, you are eligible to apply for that OPT STEM extension, assuming that you've maintained status and other things. Here's the link right here that we were just looking at for that STEM OPT degrees. That's also on the FAQ section in our ISSS portal, so you can access it there as well. Now, what's going to happen is if you are on OPT, you have a 90-day period that you can apply, and that means 90 days before your OPT AEAD card expires, you can apply. If you apply 91 days before that end date on your employment authorization document, they will reject it. If you apply 1 day after, and 1 day after meaning if they've accepted it, so even if you submit it the day before or 2 days before it is authorized to your employment end date, if USCIS receives it and receipts it after that date, then they will deny it. So what you want to do is make sure that you don't send it too early, but definitely no later than 1 week before that employment authorization ends. While it's processing, there is actually a regulation that just automatically extends your employment authorization for 180 days. And so you are still allowed to continue working while USCIS reviews your application, okay? And again, the process is you go to the portal, there is an OPT STEM extension application. You're going to go ahead, upload all of the documents that you intend to submit to USCIS. We review your status, we review your CIP code, and we give you feedback and that Form I-20 to include it with your application. Now, the one thing that's different also, I alluded to this Form I-983. The Form I-983 that you can actually access, this is page 5 of what is a 5-page document. You're giving a lot of information about the employer. The employer is going to actually sign at certain places and say that they agree to certain terms, such as if you quit working with the employer, they're going to notify us. Actually, it's your responsibility, but they're also signing that as well. So you and your employer have to go through and fill out this form, and then you provide it to us as part of your application. We cannot give you a recommendation for that OPT STEM extension until we've reviewed this form as well. And once everything is in place with this form, we upload this form to CVIS. So CVIS now has documentation of what you're doing on your STEM OPT extension experience and who you're working for as well. Now, like I said, this goes up to CVIS. But the difference also with OPT STEM extension is you have to make a report, and this is actually every 6 months. So we put here the evaluations are due at the 12-month and the end of an employment period, but also at 6 months and 18 months you have to report. So 6 months, you're just going to go into the portal and say, yes, I'm working for the same person. Nope, nothing's changed from what's on my Form I-983. Now, at the 12-month period, you're going to fill out the first section or the first half of what you see on this page, and you're going to get your employer to sign it and agree and talk about the progress that you've made. 18 months, you're just say, yep, everything's still the same. And then 24 months, or when you end work with a new employer, especially if you're going to go to another employer, you need to fill out the final evaluation so your employer can say, now that you've finished this job, here's the work that you've done, and we are required to upload this to CVIS. So that's the reporting requirements that are additional to OPT STEM extension. All of this is addressed on the study in the States, and it even gives guidance to employers on how employers should fill out their portion. It gives students what you should be doing when you're filling out this portion. So refer to that and those instructions. With that being said, you have our contact information. If you have general questions about how our portal functions, maybe just some basic questions about the forms, email our peer advisor and Sarah at internationalstudents@usu.edu. She's great to respond quickly, give you good information. So with that being said, I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to turn the time over to Joseph Banks from Career Services. And after his presentation, we'll go ahead and have that question and answer session.
All right, thank you. Yeah, my name is Joseph Banks. I'm the Assistant Director over at Career Services, and basically, you know, there's a lot of really good, important information that you guys got here about CPT and OPT, and probably how we can help with that is obviously how to help you guys find those positions, those jobs that you want to be able to use those tools. And so let me just give you a little bit of background about myself while I start sharing my screen here. So I actually I started out at Utah State University working with the Huntsman School of Business, working for finding internships for those students. And then I actually moved to University of California, Riverside, and helped international students exclusively finding different internships and different work experiences for them as well. Before I came back up here, probably about 2 years ago or so, as the assistant director. Now, just really love Logan and Utah State and just wanted to come back here. And so what I'm going to show here is a little bit of an overview of Career Services, just tell you a little bit about the things that we offer. And hopefully we will see you guys come and use some of these tools here. Yeah, basically, if you wanted to know where our offices are officially, they are in the basement level of the University Inn. It's the big glass building right next to the Student Center. And at the moment, currently, we don't have any of our main coaches who are working there. We're all working remotely though. So if you wanted to set up an appointment with us, you'd want to use Handshake, Aggie Handshake, best tool for able to look for jobs, but also to be able to set up an appointment with your career coach. Currently, right now, the only thing that they're doing mostly is the testing center that they have there with GMAT and other graduate school preparation things. But we still are operating at full capacity, just not physically there. And so let me show you just a little bit about us, tell you a little bit about us. One thing that we do, the first one is a lot about learning. So especially for those people who are just beginning their careers right now or their university, a lot of times you're like, well, okay, I want to do this major. I know I want to do something in this field and such, but what can I do with my major? What is it? And we, as career coaches, we kind of help you guide you through that, help you find out what your skills are, explore different majors and career opportunities that come from those majors. How can you use it? as well as different career planning electives and helping you to design your career. And so some of the tools that we have there, the USU 1220 course, that's just a course to help kind of guide your career search. We also have online on our main page something called a Focus 2 assessment. It's kind of a grouping of all the different, personality assessments and strengths assessments, interest assessments, where it'll give you kind of an overview, and it's free for all our students. So if you were to go on our career services webpage, you could get access to that, and then if you give you a little bit more guidance as far as where you want to go. We also help you in getting informational interviews, where you can reach out to a person working in that field and talk to them. What is it like to work there, and get some more information, as well as coach you on how to do some good job shadowing and even just general designing your life. That's kind of a book that we have. How do you get your interests and how do you help plan out the rest of your life there? And so those are some of the things that we do to help learn. The other things, we want you to discover things. So discover new job opportunities, and all the different potential that you have there. And so there's the one-on-one career coaching. You can set up an appointment with your career coach. We have coaches for every discipline there, and we're all available for you. We do things like look over your resumes. Maybe you want to have someone look over your LinkedIn profile, make sure it looks professional. Maybe you have like a CV ready, but you want to know how to convert that to an American style resume. Things like that, we are happy to help you with, as well as finding different employment opportunities. And even with the alumni networking, what's the best way to reach out to current alums, and what kind of tips and tricks can you do with them? And the other part is the engaging side of things, of actually doing the job search, the application part of it, and of course, succeeding in it, receiving those jobs. And so part of that would be mock interviews. Mock interviews are great because they give you a chance to practice. If you have an interview coming up in like a week or so, and you want to practice it and just make sure that your timing is correct. Maybe you're not as comfortable with your speech, and so you just want to practice it with somebody. We'll be happy to come up with a list of many different questions that people have. We'll take a look at the job description, or even you give us a kind of a description of what kind of interview you're looking for, and we can give you a practice run there. And then after that practice run, we'll give you feedback on how to make a clearer answer, or how to, what things you have done well on and what kind of things you can improve on. Other things we have, like I mentioned a little bit before, we have some grad prep and some testing that goes on in our offices, as well as helping you apply for jobs. The tool I mentioned before, Aggie Handshake, we have different organizations throughout, mostly throughout the state of Utah, but even throughout the United States, and even international positions that post on Aggie Handshake and are looking specifically for Utah State University students. And so that would be a great resource if you just even wanted to search through and see different jobs that are looking for students that you might want to apply to. We also help you in negotiating offers, salary, where do you find out the information? What kind of salary should you expect? What's your range? And how do you talk to employers about negotiating your salary, and helping you to launch your career that way too? So those are just a few of the tools that we have here. Now, what I wanted to show you on this slide here, this is just a little bit of advice or tips that you guys can do while you're here at Utah State University. This is a list of the different skills that employers have told about what are the strong skills and things that they like to see on a resume, things that you can do here while you're on campus. And so some of the things, if you've held a leadership position before, and that could be like in a club or in an organization, what your academic major is, or even if you've got a high GPA, it's always important to keep those studies up. And then but they also want to see that you're involved in like extracurricular activities. These would be like clubs or volunteer groups, what school you attended, or even if you've done volunteer work. Other things that they look at is if you're fluent in a foreign language. I know many of you are, as well as even if you studied abroad, and hopefully that's all of you here. And so all of those things, we can help, bring that out, because these are things that maybe you don't really think about when you're creating your resume or creating your documents, and how do you explain that? And for career services, we can help you put these things in your resume and highlight them to make you sound very professional and be very competitive there. So I mentioned before, each of the colleges has a career coach. We have right now about 5 different dedicated career coaches for the colleges. Myself, I work with the College of Humanities and Social Sciences, as well as the Kane College of the Arts. We have Jillian Morley, who works with Agriculture and Applied Sciences, Paige Gessland with the Natural Resources. Sophie Bassett is really good. She works with both the sciences and engineering. and then Dan and Loveland, who works with education and undeclared business. And so all of those people there are here to help you. You can reach out to us through email. The other thing, we have what is called drop-in hours. And so these are students, graduate students that are dedicated to just doing resume reviews and such during these hours. And basically they will review your resume, anytime for about like 10 or 15 minutes. The times that we have right here, Mondays and Wednesdays from 11:30 to 1:30, Tuesdays and Thursdays between 12 and 1:30, and then also in the early evening, about 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. And then of course, Friday morning from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. And so those students are there. You can just go to a link. In fact, I'll show you where to get to that link on our Career Services main page to find that thing. Also, we have coming up next month in February, is really big for career fairs. We have the STEM fair coming up on February 10th. And so that's going to be from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. If you want to talk with different employers, it is virtual, so you'll want to sign up and register on Handshake, and you can even register for one-on-one appointments with different organizations too. So check those out. The other one would be later on in the month of February, which is the Spring Career and Internship Fair. And this is for those, who may not be specifically targeting a STEM field, but you want to, you still want to meet with employers and talk with them and such. And so those employers will be there then. And if anyone's interested in the education, the UAEE Education Fair is going to be the day right after that one on February 25th. These are mostly like different school districts throughout the United States that are looking to hire new teachers and such. And so we also have, the students on the day before actually of the Spring Career Fair on February 23rd, as well as the week before on the STEM Fair on February 4th. We're going to have extended drop-in hours too. So if anybody wants to go and get their resume reviewed really quickly before they go and visit with some of these employers, great opportunity for you guys to do that. So the one thing I wanted to share before I get too far here, real quickly, is just on our main career services page. And so this is our career services page, career-services.usu.edu. And if you want to do the drop-in, right over here, we have drop-in appointments. And this would show you the hours of operation. It also has our graduate career peers right here, and currently what rooms what are available. And so if you wanted to drop in and just talk with them about your resume, this is the page you'd want to go to. Also, the other tool that I mentioned, the Focus 2 assessment, just right here. And so that if you wanted to do that assessment, you would just need your A number and this code right here to help get you in there, and you can do that. And so basically, those are some of the resources I wanted to share with you. If there's any questions or anything you want to know about how career services can help you while you're here, please let me know.
Hi, I came in a little late, so I was just wondering, do you actually have to have a job lined up before you apply for OPT?
No, I mean, if you have someone who's willing to hire you, that might help you determine a timeline. But yeah, when you apply for OPT, we don't report an employer at that time. We basically put that you're requesting it and when, and you have to select a start date. So that's the challenge, is if you haven't talked to someone, you're selecting a start date at random, but at least that gives you a date that you know that you need to get a job by. So that, since you're selecting a date in your 60-day grace period following your final semester, right? Then what you're doing is just trying to get a job by then. And in order to stop the clock and not use any of your 90 days of unemployment, you need to report work. And so that's, a lot of people think like, oh, I've applied for OPT and I got my EAD card, I'm done. But if you haven't told us who you're working for, you've missed a step. So you do have to report an employer, and say you put a start date of June 5th and you started on June 8th. We need to get that in the system within 10 days. And then any time that you used from June 5th to June 8th would be considered unemployment. And you have an aggregate clock of 90 days. And that's really great. Some people use it at the front end because they're still looking for a job and they have no choice. But at 91 days, if you've exceeded that unemployment clock, you're in a legal overstay. So yeah, so you don't need a job to apply, but it is important to kind of get that job in and reported and on your I-20. So volunteering, so let's talk about standard OPT. Students ask, okay, I'm having a hard time finding a paid job, or I found this really great internship, but it's unpaid. So anything that we're reporting still has to be tied to your field of study, volunteer or not. But the nice thing about the volunteer situation is that it does stop the clock. It's always great if it is part, because it can be part-time or full-time. But I would always look at the volunteer work as something temporary. Often you'll see like a summer internship that's very obviously tied to your degree. But there are some other things that become a little bit more questionable. So, I'll give you a good example. You want to make sure that if you're, often students will want to talk to their professors and say, hey, can you hire me? You want to make sure that any job you take, right, it has to meet Fair Labor Standard Acts. And if they're hiring you, even if it's volunteer, it still must meet those requirements that this is not a paid position typically. And so if someone wants to hire you, your best resource or even your employer's resources is talking to their human resources and making sure that the position that they want to offer you is possible. But again, it can be part-time or full-time. When it moves into STEM extension though, it has to be a paid position. It has to be a minimum of 20 hours. And that's also why I think, of volunteer work, you want to move into a better situation. Obviously, you want to get paid, and you just completed a degree. And so you're worth something. Your time is worth something, but sometimes there's great internships out there that are definitely worth considering for a resume piece to get you to the next job. And so, yeah, like Joseph is a great resource for that, especially since he's had, internship experience. And so if you're taking a job because you just can't find something else, it still does need to be relevant to your degree level and to your field of study.
Okay, we do have a question in the chat while other people are thinking about things. It said, the first question is, if your student visa expires but you still have STEM extension, do you have to apply for a new student? And can you apply for it while here in the US? Chris, do you want to answer that one for us?
Sure. So while you're here in the US, the only thing that matters, the only thing that needs to be valid, well, if you're on STEM extension, then your EAD needs to be valid and your I-20 needs to be valid. The most important thing obviously is your EAD. Your visa serves one purpose, and it gets you into the country, right? So if your visa expires while you're here, you don't need to renew your visa unless you have plans to leave the country.
Let's clarify that you can't, there's no processing within the USA of an F1 visa or any visa.
Yeah,
talk about that.
I was gonna say, yeah, there is no process in the United States to renew a visa. So yes, you would, if you plan to renew your visa, you would have to return to your home country to do that. Unless you're doing like a change of status to a different type of visa, that can happen in the United States, but there's different stuff associated with that.
All right, then there's another question that was sent to me privately that I want to see if we can stump the experts in this one. So if you look at the Form I-20, and down in the left-hand side, there's a notation that says ICE Form I-20, and there's a date, and one of the students has a date that's in the future that says 4-30-2021, and I've seen them. There's different dates depending on when the ICE Form I-20, but what is that date? Does anyone know what that refers to?
Nope. I'll be the first to say nope. I have no idea.
So this isn't the form date?
Well, go ahead.
I'm looking at an I-20 right now, and yeah, at the bottom left-hand corner, it says ICE Form I-20.
It's not actually the form date, like it's just written on the left bottom side of the I-20. Like it just says ICE Form I-20 4/30/2021. That's it.
Maybe that's like a validation date of like from ICE or something. I have no idea like how long this document version is valid for. I have no idea.
And I've actually been Googling it and looking at it while I'm here, and it shows me several example templates, but I can't find anything. So, and I'll say that means us as school officials, that's not been relevant to anything other than that's just some kind of maybe letting
there's probably some form of tracking that they want printed on it that's outside of a request process. Or maybe it's a period for review for a future possible changes, because obviously we're not to April yet. So now I'm interested to see what happens on that date.
It's definitely good. Yeah, interested to see what happens, but no idea what it means.
I wish it had been a bit farther than April.
You stumped the experts, Kumar. I'm sorry. That's new to us. So we'll watch it in our trainings and see if we ever see anything. But I have never heard this addressed in all of the time that I've been.
Yeah, I'm also a bit confused, like what it is. I just saw it
Yeah.
right now.
I'd probably, it'd be interesting if, I mean, I have a lot of students who've uploaded, documents that go back many, many years. I'd be curious to see how many times that date changed. I'll look into it.
Yeah, sure. Thanks.
Thanks for joining us.
All right. We have another question in the chat, which says, if my I-20 is expiring this year, when will I need to renew it before applying for OPT? Are you guys okay if I take this one? But essentially is, if you have a Form I-20 and it's ending, then that's what's going to happen. So say you have a Form I-20 that's out into the future and you're finishing your program early, we actually have to shorten your program end date to whenever you're going to finish your program and then are eligible to apply for OPT. So you don't want to renew it at that point unless, like, let's say it ends spring and you're still enrolling in fall, then you would need to renew it. But otherwise, no, you don't need to renew it. We're going to actually probably shorten it. And then I said at the beginning of the presentation, this is why I wanted to take this one, is because at the beginning of the presentation, I had said, your Form I-20 always needs to be valid. And I need to correct myself. Your Form I-20 is valid as long as you're enrolled at Utah State University. After that, it's your employment authorization document that needs to be valid, that maintains your F1 status aside from your Form I-20. You still need your Form I-20 to travel to show that we've recommended in the status of your OPT, but it's your the employment authorization document that actually is what you need to not expire while you're in the US, or when it does, that indicates what Amanda talked about, period of time of leaving, depending on if you're employed or not.
So just if for some reason you haven't applied for OPT and your I-20 is expiring, but you're not done with your requirements, then you need to request an extension because you have to have a valid I-20 in order to apply for OPT. The next question in here, Shelley, is someone is asking about the passport with an OPT. So that red icon that you showed early in your presentation showed that you always have to have a valid passport. Doesn't matter, well, you're here in the US, whether you're on OPT or not, your passport should never expire. And of course, that can be really challenging during COVID to get passport renewals. So planning ahead, reaching out to your embassy, finding out what you need to do. So at least you're getting something processed because it can be very frustrating if you're, it's ended and now you're worried about having a valid passport document. So you should know all these end dates. Your visa is just helpful to know if you're planning to travel, but your passport and your I-20, when does your program end? So either you're planning for an extension request through the portal or you're looking at how that relates to your OPT. The only thing I think that I know we had a question about the grace semester. So one clarification, and I really should put this in the slide so I remember to talk about it, is that if you've applied for, if you're a graduate student and you've applied for the grace semester because you have successfully defended, so you're eligible for that grace semester, and you decide to apply for OPT in that, you're not eligible to carry a 0.5 FTE because you're no longer working on credits on your program of study. So when we have graduate assistantships that are given like tuition waivers, you have to be a student making progress on a plan of study to keep that position. And so if you're looking at the grace semester and you're looking at your work options, you might want to talk to your department to see if they have hourly employment for you, since that assistantship is not possible. The nice thing about the USU 777 is it doesn't have tuition and fees tied to it, but because you are registering, you're still considered an international student, so you're still paying insurance and that international student fee. So though your professors may tell you there's no costs, you still are going to have insurance and those fees.
All right, then.
I got one more question, sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so my I-20 says that the program start date is 21st August 2017, and the end date is 28th August 2022. So I'm planning to defend my dissertation most probably this spring, if not coming summer. Will I be able to apply for the OPT means immediately I defend my dissertation?
We would shorten your program, like Shelley was saying, is that even though your I-20 is out in 2022, so kind of depending on, so if you decide to apply for OPT before you've actually defended, again, you're taking a little bit of a risk, we would shorten your I-20 to the semester that you're applying for OPT because you have to be in that period of time. And so we make it so you're within that 90 days because so based on an actual program, a semester end date, we're not just going to pick a random date. And so we shorten your program, you apply for OPT, you've started that clock, and then your OPT is keeping you in status. We do see students still register for the grace semester, but if you've applied for OPT, that's what's maintaining your immigration status.
Okay, so we're at the end of our scheduled time, but that doesn't mean we won't be happy. So if there's any more questions, you're welcome to ask it. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and wrap up this session.
Well, thank you all, especially Joseph, since you're a treat to have join our office. And we really do appreciate you all jumping on because you also save our time by joining these meetings because we do get a little crazy with our scheduling. So thank you all.